Welcome to another Break in the Chain deck tech, and I'm bringing to you a Valda deck that I have been working on for a while now. I'm really excited because I did bring this to the one and only PQ I could really go to, and I've got top 8 with it, and I'm really happy. There's a few changes I really want to go over near the end, but overall I just want to go over some of the basics, and I want to get Valda out there because I think she is a good deck. It has a lot of potential. It's just no one's really testing her. So this is Valda. If you don't know Valda, it's whenever your opponent draws a card, you create a Seismic Surge during the action phase. And at the start of your turn, if you control 3 or more Seismic Surge tokens, cards with Crush get Dominate this turn. So this entire deck, it's called Seismic Domination. The idea of this deck is you're going to be consistently creating Seismic Surge. Leyline is really the biggest piece of this deck, and this is when you're going to be it's going to help you feed into that idea of creating consistent Seismic Surge. But first off, we'll start off with the equipment sleeve. I think you have what is the generic pieces. You have Tectonic Plating, you have Titan's Fist, Quick Dodge Flexors. The Iron Fist Revelation is new. It is a good piece of equipment. It is something where I'm still not entirely sure if it's as good as it looks, because there's a lot of times where I just block it to temper 2 and don't even get the extra counter. But the best it is best when used with Spinal Crush and put them in their place, because it allows them to have that extra breakpoint, especially for Spinal Crush. All of a sudden you can't block with 2 cards to turn off Crush, you have to block with 3. It is something that I do think it's good, but it is something that can easily be replaced. This deck in the end is very expensive, but you can easily replace this with Greater Fist and get 99% of the power. And there's going to be a lot of cards that I'll go over that you can replace and get 99% of the deck's power. So if you need something a little cheaper, Greater Fist is definitely an easy replacement for the Iron Fist Revelation. But it is good because if you can set up something, or even if you put something in your arsenal, it allows you to stack those counters to make it harder for your opponent to turn off the Crush effect. The other thing I want to talk about is Crown of Providence. I know a lot recently I've seen a lot of the forget what it is, but it's what is it called again? It's the crown that when the opponent draws 2 cards, you can choose to draw a card. The thing is, I like Crown of Providence because it's a lot more reliable and I can choose when to use it. A lot of times if I draw an all red hand, I just block with this and switch my hand around. This lets me to put a card, or even sometimes Disruption, but even then I don't use it that much for against CNC. You can normally just block that with regular cards, but it allows your deck to stay more consistent, and that's what feels so powerful, is sometimes you just draw a hand you can't use and you just need a blue, and this deck is 32 blues, and once the main deck is set, it's going to be 32 blues and minus 3, 25 reds. So this allows you to more likely than not draw a card that you can pitch, but doesn't always work out. But it helps with the consistency, and I like that a lot more for the helmet piece than any of the other helmets that we have. Finally, we have Testament of Valhalla. I know this one I have a lot of people asking about, is this really worth it? And I want to say that at minimum, you're going to get 3 block out of this whenever you run it, because you're going to hit 3 Seismic Surge so many times in the game. And at that point, it's the same as the rare shield, that Steelblade Buckler. It is the same where it blocks 3. Where this, you can sometimes, if not most games, get to 6 Seismic Surge at least once, so you get the extra 2 value, and at that point, it's an insane weapon, or an insane shield. And it's really cool because it also allows you to maybe even set up a turn, and the opponent tries to throw this Disruption at you. I was facing a Jarl the other day. This was at an armory, but not at my Pro Quest, but I was facing a Jarl the other day, and I had a huge setup turn, and they threw a Oakenold, and I was able to block 5 with Testament, block with my helmet, or I can't remember if his helmet was gloved, but block with my arms or my helmet, and 1 card from hand, keep my setup turn, and it was really keen in that matchup, and it really helped me to get the win there. But I want to say that's the main equipment slate. We'll go more into the Arcane Barrier and the sideboard later, but this is what really drives the deck. It is important to keep all this. I'd say Quick Dodge Flexors is really easy to replace because a lot of times you don't get the best and biggest value out of it, but you do need Tectonic Plating, most and all, just to keep that Seismic Surge going. But finally, to go into the deck. I think the first thing you're going to notice is I am running the old one cards, the Heave 2 cards, over the Aftershock Red. And I've seen a lot of Valda lists running Aftershock Red over these. But I do like the smelting ones, or the like disenchantment of the smelting, or the old ones, and smelting of the old ones. Because along with tectonic plating, one blue and this card will let you heave 2 and pay 1 into tectonic plating to create 3 seismic surge, which allows you on the next turn to have a 10 dominate, because it is also a crush card. The other thing that's really powerful with that is it is a crush card, so it does gain the dominate, and it just gains all that kind of... It just allows you to fake a pummel, is kind of what I wanted to say. Where a lot of the times, if you're holding an extra card in hand, a lot of people will be like, oh man, it's pummel. And everyone knows what pummel is. So when you're holding this in hand, 2 floating, like say I throw a spinal dominated, holding 1 in hand, 2 and 2 floating, it's something where they might block it awkwardly, or even if it doesn't have dominate, a lot of times I've definitely seen players go, well, I can't take a pummel this turn. So they overblock, which allows you to just then heave 2 and then get up to 2 or 3 seismic surge. And I like the extra play that it adds. While the Aftershock is, it's consistent value, the old one cards allow you to do a little more tricky things. It allows you to, even if you don't have a seismic surge already, it allows you to more easily generate more on the back end. And it's also just a 6 for 10. There's a lot of times in late games where if I have put them down one way or another, if I'm even drawing them in the late game because we haven't gotten the second cycle, I will have the momentum and I can just throw 10 damage at the opponent. They're at maybe 4, 5, 6 life, and they're forced to block with a lot of cards from hand because it's just a lot of damage. So I really like the disenchantment of the old ones. I think personally I like it a lot more than Aftershock. I did test that for a while, but I've been fairly impressed with the smelting of the old ones. I have 4 in the list because I do want it to be a little more consistent with it, but it hasn't been like something that is super necessary because it's not disruption at the same time. It just helps your deck stay a little more consistent. The next card is probably going to be Enlightened Strike that I want to talk about, because I was a classic Enlightened Strike hater in Guardian. Like, I played Bravo, I played Victor, I've played a lot of Guardian, and I absolutely hated Enlightened Strike and all those Guardians, which I know a lot of Guardians like it, but I remember being at an armory and someone I was talking with was talking about how they were trying Valda and they loved Enlightened Strike, and they know I'm a hater, and they're like, oh, you've got to at least try it. So I sat down, I tried Enlightened Strike, and I have fallen in love with the card in this deck. So let me explain why. So as someone that went from, I'm never going to put it in a Guardian deck, it's not good, it doesn't give me the value I need, the thing I want to explain about Enlightened Strike specifically is this card allows you to have Go Again. And so it allows you to have Go Again, which is really strong with especially Leyline. And we'll go a little deeper into Leyline now. But again, if you don't know, Leyline is the Mastery Pack Guardian Legendary. It's a 3/0 cost Guardian instant aura. And it says when it enters the arena or when you would deal damage, create a Seismic Surge token. At the beginning of your end phase, if you control no Seismic Surge, destroy this. The thing about Enlightened Strike is it has Go Again, and this creates a Seismic Surge whenever you deal damage. So one thing that can happen or is really strong is you go Enlightened Strike, Go Again into Hammer, you get 2 Seismic Surges on hit because not a lot of people are going to block those breakpoints because an on-hit Seismic Surge doesn't sound so strong. Another thing that's really strong is if some matchups you run Boulder Drop and you go Enlightened Strike, it hits, and if you already had a Seismic Surge, you can pitch to a Seismic Surge and then throw Boulder Drop, and if that hits, you have 3 Seismic Surge just because you went wide one turn. I want to say Enlightened Strike is a actually very important piece, and it actually helps a ton. The other thing is it helps with consistency. So we were talking about earlier how this deck has probably the most reds out of any Guardian I've run, comparatively to like Victor and Bravo. The Enlightened Strike helps you when you draw like an all-red hand. It's something you're happy to arsenal and sit on, but it helps you to, on an all-red hand, still attack or have more consistency, or even if you're like a big setup turn, you have 6 Seismic Surge or 3 Seismic Surge from the turn before, and you have that Enlightened Strike. You could go Enlightened Strike, putting a red underneath and throwing another red attack. Again, we'll bring up Boulder Drop. But Like, say I had 3 Seismic Surge, I can, on an all-red hand, throw in Lightning Strike for 5, throw Boulder Drop in Arsenal and all-red, another red card. Maybe even if I didn't block because I took all the momentum, I can pitch to the Tectonic Plating. It allows you to just stay more consistent. It allows you to prevent pressure. It is a piece that seems so strong and necessary in Valda. And I am very happy that someone locally had pushed me to try it out because I think that really helped at least my deck go from something that I was felt okay about to something I felt really happy about bringing to a pro quest. So, talking about that, we already know about Pummel. Put them in their place, just in case you don't know. It doesn't seem that strong because it says when it deals 4 more damage to a hero, they discard their hand and then draw that many cards. If you don't know this card, it doesn't seem that strong. Okay, the opponent's just getting their hand back, but it's really good with Valda because when the opponent draws cards, again, you create that many Seismic Surge. So this allows you to just cycle your turns. If the opponent can't block well, or in the late game, again, it's just a 6 for 10. It just allows you to cycle your turns. So you can put Dominate on this. If you can put Iron Fist Revelation, sometimes it helps out a lot because it just presents even more awkward breakpoints, especially if they're running defense reactions or if they have a lot of armor block. This is really key to just make your opponent throw everything away, like all your equipment pretty early, or it's something that allows you to, if they don't have that kind of blocking potential, just, okay, put them in their place, into a Spinal Crush, into a Smelting of the Old Ones. It just allows you to go more aggressive. It is a very, very important piece to the deck. Obviously, we're going to have Spinal Crush in the deck. Best Guardian card. It is just key. It's the best disruption you have. You have Pummel, you have put them in their place, but the thing about Spinal Crush is most every hero, especially nowadays, has Go Again. You just need that consistency. So Spinal Crush is really important, just to even just rip a couple cards out of their hand to allow you to have more room. I won't go into too much more detail, but that is what's so important in that. But moving on, I want to say what is maybe the strongest card in the deck, or what can be closest to. It's going to be Seismic Eruption. There are so many cool plays you can do with this. You can block with your shield and have it be like a 1 block at some point and wait to see if your opponent has a like attack reaction or some kind of tricky thing or this, that, or another thing. Like if it's a Kasai with the new reaction that makes a ally on hit, you can put the shield, and if they play that, then you can Seismic Eruption on top of it, gaining your 3 Seismic Surge, blocking 2 extra, and that, like, it allows you to do some really cool tricks. But the other thing that I want to say about Seismic Eruption with Valda especially is I play this, I pitched it, it's like pitching like, you have pretty much there are 3 gems in your deck that say, when you pitch this, your next attack has Dominate. And that's really strong because you can also do some very strong defensive plays with it. Like if you draw it with Solid Ground or you Arsenal to Solid Ground knowing that Seismic Eruption's coming up, you can Seismic Eruption, play Solid Ground, and it's as if you've already you're blocking 5 and you've pitched a blue and your next attack has Dominate. And it's just really strong. And I encourage you to play around with this card, see what feels good, what doesn't feel good. Arsenaling on this is probably your strongest Arsenal target just because if the opponent throws Disruption, you just play it. If the opponent, or if you have an all-red hand, you can play it from Arsenal. You can sit on it. If you draw your power card, put them in their place and a Pummel together, you play Seismic Eruption. It's a card you're so happy to sit on and just kind of wait for the time to play it. And then worst case scenario, you draw a really, really, you draw a bad hand that doesn't even have a crush card in it. Like you have Promising Terrain, Solid Ground, all this kind of bottom row of cards right here. You draw a hand of all that. And you need to set an Arsenal. You can usually play this and almost guarantee that you're going to have a crush card next turn. And it just feels like the strongest card in your deck. Going into the blue base, first we're just going to go generically. You have a bunch of the crush attacks, Choke Slam, Cranial Crush, Disable. This is just the blue crush base. You need it to help you trigger a lot of your crush stuff, and it just helps pitch. It is necessary to have a good blue crush base. Going past that, you have Headbutt. I want to bring up Headbutt specifically because it says it's majestic. If you don't have it, you don't necessarily need it. What I find is so strong about Headbutt is that it cannot be defended by non-head equipment. So it's really strong if you can pair with like Pummel per se. So this card, I don't know if I've actually ever gotten the crush effect off, but it's good with Pummel, and then late game, especially into like the Verdance matchup, because they're going to pop their helmet a lot more consistently now, and you're going to run the Nolrun helmet. This is a 4 for 7, which is pretty okay value, especially at a blue. So I want to say it's a okay card, but if you want to replace it with another crush card, that you could easily do it. But it is something that's fine in the deck. Moving back up a list a little bit, we're going to go to Aftershock. I only have 2 because you only have so much room for cards that don't say crush. And again, like talking about the red Aftershocks with the disenchantment of the old ones and smelting of the old ones, the red Aftershocks didn't have crush, and that's kind of why they didn't make my list. Again, with the blue Aftershock, they don't make my list because they don't have crush. But they allow you to pitch stack some really cool plays. Like you can pitch stack that with a promising terrain, or you can do tectonic instability in front of an Aftershock and have a Seismic Surge already set up. So this allows you to late game, if you've run out of all your reds, your Seismic Eruptions, you don't have a lot of generation, maybe even your ley line's gone at that point. This allows you to generate more Seismic Surge. And that's kind of the key and why it's on the list and why it's pretty good. But it is a strong card, but it's cut down to 2 because it doesn't say crush. And a lot of the blue base, as I'm going to explain, especially with a lot of this bottom row, you need, when you draw an all blue hand, you need to be able to play it all. So having a hand like of all the blue attacks, which is definitely possible, I'm trying to cut that down even just a tiny bit by running only 2 of. The next card that I'm sure everyone's oh so excited to see and very disappointed to see in the list is going to be Authority of Atoya. I want to say this card is strong, but like it's only relevant in 1 in every 10 matchups. Otherwise, it might even be better to run another Aftershock blue. Obviously, if you don't have an Atoya, an easy replacement is Aftershock 2. Or another blue Aftershock. And it's similar to the Iron Fist Revelation and the Crater Fist that I was talking about earlier. If you replace this card, you're going to be running 99% of the deck. You're still going to be running what is the majority of the deck, and you're still going to be able to play a very consistent game. It is only really for like every once in a blue moon you're able to play this and the opponent has a defense reaction on your put them in their place or something silly like that. It is, I've had it in my list for probably like 3 weeks now, and I've had it be relevant like 3 times. So it's not necessary at all. It is really just like, I need that extra 1% for maybe Worlds or whatever. That's when I think it's necessary, but I'm sure if I went to my ProQuest, I don't think in my entire ProQuest run where I made the top 8, I don't know if it was ever relevant. I think every time I pitched it, it was just another blue in my hand, and it also does not block, is another downside you have to think about. So, and it's not a 3 cost, so Titan's Fist will only come in for 3 if you pitch it, which definitely came a couple times in the ProQuest. So it's something that I'm still not entirely sure if it's actually that good, but it is something that I think in the end will make or break some high-level games, especially into the pitch stack. But I think it's a very easy replacement. If you don't want to cash out the money, or if you don't want to, if you really don't need to make a top-tier Valda deck, Aftershock Blue, again, you're running 99% of the deck. You are going to perform just well, especially at your armories, and I'm sure even at the ProQuest, you'd still perform just as well. The next is Grandeur of Valhalla. So, unfortunately, this one's a little more necessary. When you pitch this, you create a Seismic Surge. It's not 100% necessary again. I'm not exactly sure what I would replace it with. It'd probably just be another blue crush card, or maybe even anything with Go Again, or even the Heave 2 card at blue. Rubble Riser, something like that, just to allow you into the blue base to create more Seismic Surge. But this one's really interesting in the fact that, especially when you're running Quick Dodge Flexors, what you can do is when you go to block the opponent, if you have 2 Seismic Surge up, you can pitch Grandeur of Valhalla to block with Quick Dodge Flexors and create your 3rd, giving your Dominate to the next attack. I'd say that one came up a little more consistently than the others. The other cool thing is if you have Solid Ground and Grandeur in the same hand, you can potentially block 7 off of 2 cards, because you put Grandeur of Valhalla into Quick Dodge Flexors, which blocks 2, creating a Seismic Surge, making solid ground cost 1 less, so then you can block 5. So it's a 2-card 7 block, creating a Seismic Surge, which sometimes, again, going from 2 to 3, can be insanely relevant. So it is something where I think it is a little more necessary to the deck, but there's definitely games where it just gained no value, if a little bit of negative value, because it could not block. Going down, you have Imposing Visage. Obviously, Imposing Visage is only in the deck to search out Leyline. Outside of turn 1 or turn 0, it is really not that good of a card. A lot of the times, if I see it and it's outside of the first couple turns, I will just block with it. Because even if I can search up Leyline, I might lose a lot of value to search up Leyline, especially if I have to keep a huge hand when they're throwing something big. The only thing that, it's insanely good because you're going to always go first with Valda. And if you go turn 0, you have 4 cards in your deck that say Leyline of the Old Ones. And that's what's so strong about it. So, it's in the deck just for the turn 0 value of I could start off the game 30%, with a 30% higher win rate. It just, if you start the game with Leyline in play, you're already winning, and it doesn't matter what deck you're into. Turn 0 Leyline is the strongest thing this deck could ever do. Moving back on, we have Promising Terrain, and you could Imposing into Promising. It is a very rare play. I wouldn't say I've never done it, but it is a very rare play. But Promising Terrain, again, if you don't know what Promising Terrain is, it's a blue 0-cost block 3. It has Go Again, which is really good in Valda, because you can, what I was saying earlier, you want the blue base to be effective, especially if you throw Disruption and you have a turn back. So Promising Terrain, Go Again. If you'd create 1 or more Seismic Surge tokens, create that many plus 1. At the beginning of your action phase, destroy this. If you control 3 or more Seismic Surge tokens, draw a card and gain a life. So this card is something that you'll sometimes get value out of. Sometimes it doesn't do a whole lot. You block with it pretty easily. You can pitch stack it, which is really cool, but a lot of times it's just a block card. It's not super strong. But there are a few scenarios where if things line up, or if the opponent allows you to have momentum, especially if you Leyline down, this card can allow you to do what is I want to say a combo, but it allows you to do some crazy plays. I was playing an event once where I was playing against another Guardian, and I played Promising Terrain. I think I did Seismic Eruption, went up to 4, and then I threw a hammer for 4. They let it hit. I went up to 6. Absolutely insane already. And then I had a pummel that was sitting in Arsenal. The next turn, I drew what was, put them in their place, another pummel, a blue, and I think a red. Or, yeah, something around there. In Promising Terrain, the draw a card function can sometimes be the craziest thing. You also gain a life, which is pretty strong, but the draw, and then the whole thing is just really strong. And if the opponent allows you to have the room, this card's insane, because they gave me the room. I did a big setup turn, hit them with the hammer, and then they did some turn to blow me back, and I blocked with my red, and I'm like, if I draw another blue this turn, then I can put them in their place, dominate, create a Seismic Surge, I had Leyline up, and I could throw 2 pummels. And I ended up drawing the blue, because again, you're more likely to draw blue than anything else. And I threw 18 dominate. They discarded their hand, drew up, discarded 2 cards, and they blocked with 1 card, so they were down to 1 card. And I created 1 off Leyline. I created 2 off Valda, and it just allowed me to, next turn, throw something else dominated. It allows for some of the most broken lines in Valda. But again, don't be hesitant to block with it. It is something where I would be very happy to block with it. It's only when you get the room that it's the craziest card in your deck. Solid Ground. So this is a card that I've seen some people not running. I've seen a little bit of maybe 1 or 2. I think it's crazy. I think it's absolutely insane, because running 3, worst case scenario, you pitch it to hammer. If you run 2 of, you might be able to arsenal 1, or you pitch 1 to the other. The worst is when they're together, but outside of that, a lot of times you float 3 Seismic Surge. So just blocking 5 on a blue is insane. Oh, maybe you need the blue, then you don't block it and you can pitch it down. It's something that's really maneuverable. It's something you can arsenal. I had a game at an armory last night where I put them in their place, and I knew they weren't going to be able to block this. I'd seen all their defense reactions, their armor was gone. I'm like, to put them in their place is gonna hit. I'm gonna get 3 Seismic Surge. So I was able to arsenal the solid ground, and when they did their clap back after they drew their hand, I blocked 5, and I was against Florian. Blocked 5 off of whatever attack they threw. I pitched to block all the arcane, and I was still able to respond with, I think it was another Heave 10 for Dominate. So I blocked all their stuff and threw Heave 10 for Dominate. Absolutely insane. I think this card is 100% necessary in Valda list. Like, it is, like I say 100%. I think it's super good. Like, I think it is something that you will be surprisingly happy with playing it, especially with this list that I'm running, where you are trying to consistently have 3 Seismic Surge. You're never going a turn where you don't want 3 Seismic Surge, and it is really good in that aspect. So, moving on from that, we have Terra Sunder. Classic Guardian card. Really good. I'm not going to go too deep into it because I'm sure everyone knows Terra Sunder at this point, but the idea of this card is, again, it's easy to pitch stack, something you're happy to block with pretty early on, but it is something that the opponent allows you to have room. You can just continue your domination. You can continue to rip stuff out of their hand. You can continue to keep the momentum. Again, the idea of this deck is I'm trying to gain momentum and keep momentum, and the blue base is trying to help you with that. And if it's not momentum through damage, such as Terra Sunder, it's momentum because you're blocking their attacks, or it's momentum through Promising Terrain, which allows you to generate a whole lot more. And Terra Sunder is just good because it keeps that momentum. Even on something like Disable. You have 6 Seismic Surge. Oh, I drew an all blue hand. Okay, Disable for 8. Dominate on hit. This. It allows you to keep that momentum. It's very strong. You'll see the plays line up. It's a card that is just amazing in Valda. And amazing in all the rest of the Guardians. The last card I want to talk about is Tectonic Instability. This card is either going to be the best card in your deck. Absolutely insane. Or the worst card in your deck. I think this is probably the most skill-intensive card in the deck, because if you do this wrong, you can fix an opponent's hand. Like, I definitely, when learning this, was playing against a Syndra. I played Tectonic Instability to try and reset and keep the 3 Seismic Surge, and they had a hand that had a few 1 cost, and it was a really awkward hand and not much they could do. I sank their arsenal, they drew a card, and they went, oh my god, thank you, I now have a blue. My hand went from like 10 damage to 30 damage, so thank you. And you have to be very careful. And there's going to be a lot of games you don't play it. There's going to be a lot of games where you draw it and you block with it. Again, that's kind of a lot of Valda. There's going to be a lot of cards where they look really strong, but blocking is okay. And Tectonic Instability, what makes Tectonic Instability the strongest card in your deck, is especially when you can Tectonic into something like Spinal, and to put them in their place, into your Disruption. Because the idea is a lot of decks are going to put and sit on their Sink Belows. So are there like defense reactions or anything that they can use to block? So being able to say, like, at any point when you know there's a defense reaction down there, especially slower decks, so like more Guardians, like Verdants, anyone that's like not going to gain just straight up 3 go again or a lot of value from drawing a card out of their from the top of their deck, this can be really strong, especially if you like Tectonic Instability, Spinal Crush. Well, now they can't block Spinal because they don't have a defense reaction in their arsenal, and it doesn't even matter if they drew a card. Like in Syndra, if you have Spinal and you can guarantee to hit it, like they have a defense reaction in hand, but it doesn't matter because they can't block from arsenal and their equipment is gone. Or maybe they don't want to block with Flick Knives, obviously, and you can maybe ask that awkward question of, you can have go again, but you lose your Flick Knives. This allows you to do some strong plays like that, and it allows you to keep that idea of 3 Seismic Surge going. But again, you have to be very careful. If you don't do this into something strong, you can make the opponent's hand stronger, and it might not be worth creating Seismic Surge. So that is where I would say be very careful when playing this, but if you play it correctly, you can guarantee a crush effect, and you can guarantee like disruption. And there's definitely been points where I play this, sink the defense reaction, play a Spinal with a pummel, and the opponent could have blocked it before, and they get a little upsetty spaghetti because now they can't block it because I took their defense reaction from their arsenal. So it is very strong, but you have to be very, very, very careful when putting into play. Moving into the sideboard, you have a pretty big sideboard, and you're going to see cards in here like Chokeslam, Boulder Drop. Those are insane cards to be in a sideboard, but it is something that you don't bring it into every single match, and that's why they don't make it. But first of all, I want to just kind of go through the equipment again. You have Arcane Lantern, Null Rune Boots, and Null Rune Hood. So with these, you can, or they're just there for Verdance. And I want to say the one thing that I think this deck struggles most into is Verdance, and especially with what it looks like Verdance being the best deck in the format. I am looking at making some changes. I'm looking to change this to an Arcanite Skullcap and maybe replacing one of the Sigil of Solace with a Null Rune Gloves. So that's, I want to say the one thing I'm looking to change in the deck to make the matchup a little bit better. Have Arcane Barrier 3, and if you're really behind and going into Fatigue, you can have Arcane Barrier 6, which can be really strong, especially when Verdances seem to be pushing more towards tempo and less towards combo. So that's kind of what I'm pushing towards and thinking about the Null Rune set. But other than that, the rest of it's pretty generic, like Null Rune Boots against Rune Blades. And then you, against Wizards, again, run 3 Arcane Barrier and can prevent 3 because you just run so many blues. So this is something that I want to say is pretty easy to understand and is pretty noticeable, but it is the Null Rune package. Finally going up, I want to talk about Batter to a Pulp and Midas Touch first, because that is pretty much the Gravy package. I think Gravy is a deck that looks scary to Guardians, but if you're teched and you know how to play into it, Valda, I think, is actually favored in Gravy as a Guardian player. And it's because of Batter to a Pulp and Midas Touch. And we'll go into Midas Touch a little later, but obviously Batter to a Pulp is a 6 for 10. If it would deal 4 or more, destroy the equipment. Valda has a very, very easy time of giving this Dominate, and very, very easy time of ripping that Compass off the Gravy, because you can put a pummel onto it, but you just create so much Seismic Surge. And the other thing about Gravy is, like, you can sit on a Batter to a Pulp even with an all-red hand, because Gravy at one point is going to pop his gold or do some crazy stuff to draw, and he's going to give you Dominate. You just need 1 blue to throw this, and Gravy will give you the answer just by playing the game. And that's what makes Batter to a Pulp so strong, and makes the Gravy match actually so strong. Or so, like, favored, I want to say, for Valda. I want to say it's like a 60-40, but it's something I think is favored for Valda. And it's because of the way she interacts with Gravy drawing cards. But Batter to a Pulp is very important in that, and you really want to throw this. I find the easiest way to beat Gravy is to actually destroy their Compass and just turn to Fatigue, because you do have Go Again options. You do have the Enlightened Strike again to kill their allies. You do just throw some small or you just throw attacks to kill a lot of the allies. You generally want to go Fatigue, sitting onto a Batter to a Pulp to destroy their Compass, and then once you destroy their Compass, you can turn over to Midas Touch. And even before destroying Compass necessarily, Midas Touch is also a very good arsenal against Gravy. And I have always heard the counter of, like, but it creates gold. Why would you run this? Why wouldn't you run any other Go Again attack into Gravy? This creates gold. Like, Gravy really wants gold. The other thing, or like, I want to say that you want Gravy to draw. Like, you want him to do this crazy stuff. Because Gravy goes crazy, all of a sudden your shield blocks for 5. Oh, Gravy goes crazy, I have a blue block 5. Oh, Gravy just starts drawing like it, just insane. It allows you to do the broken stuff. Oh, Gravy popped off. Okay, well, I have in the Fatigue matchup, Fatigue matchup, a free put them in their place. I'll block with my shield. I'll block with this attack. I'll block with this. I'm throwing 10. I'm making them discard 3 cards. And then drawing another 3, fatiguing them faster. It allows them to, like, you want them to pop off in a way. Not always, but, like, the thing is, I don't think you should be as afraid of Midas Touch into Gravy as a lot of people are, especially on Valda. Because, like, I've definitely, like, and the other thing is, like, they can activate Chum, and that's what's so scary of Gravy into Valda is, like, I have my Batter to a Pulp. I'm going to throw my Batter to a Pulp. But they activate Chum, and you have to hit Chum, so you can't throw Batter to a Pulp. Well, Midas Touch is really good in those situations, because it also says, you activate Chum, I kill Chum, I still take your Compass. It allows to give you that room, especially after the, like, Chum activation, after Seismic Surge pop, and you give them gold, and the downside's not as bad as it is in any other deck of giving them just an insane amount of gold. I've definitely been in scenarios where they pulled out Humperdinck on me, and I just Midas Touch their Humperdinck and continue with my turn, because I knew there was no other way for me to deal with Humperdinck. I feel pretty good in the gravy. I think it's something that it doesn't sound as bad as it looks, but I think it is a very good and necessary card. It also has benefits into other decks such as like Prism. It's pretty good because it allows you to get out of their loop without their interaction, which is pretty strong. You could run it into Kasai if you're really worried about the allies being built up, but it does have that Prism counter attack. So that is kind of the gravy package. Then you have what are the attacks and crash and bash. So most of the times, and I have a sideboard matchup list. There it is. But we can go into matchups. I have a matchup guide for a lot of different heroes and kind of my thought process on how to play those. But going into this, I want to say that generally what I choose the most, especially if you don't know the hero, is Boulder Drop, Chokeslam, and Crash and Bash. First off, Boulder Drop. It's the best Guardian card that we've gotten generically since Terra Sunder. It is really good. It's really relevant. It's a 3-for-7, and it forces your opponent to block with one card and a piece of equipment. Forces them to block with their defense reaction, what you want out of their arsenal. It just forces them to do what you want them to do. And then even then, if you can get Dominate and throw this for free, and they have no way to block it, it's Disruption. It gives Valda that disruption that she never had before this card came out. It's good. It's really, really good. But the thing is, it doesn't play into the Seismic Surge game plan, and it's not as good disruption as Spinal Crush. And it's not as good disruption as Pummel. And that's why it ends up in Sideboard, because sometimes you just don't have the room. That's why it ends up there. Still very good. Chokeslam is actually very, very similar to Boulder Drop. And there's definitely matchups like Rangers into other Guardians into Tempo decks, because a 3-card 8 is really strong with no downside, even some upside if they don't block it. Really strong, but again, it doesn't feed into your game plan of creating more Seismic Surge, so it ends up sitting in the sideboard, but is very, very often brought into the main board. And that's where Chokeslam, I think, is a good card, but just doesn't always make it. Finally, going into what is, again, new to Mastery Pack Guardian, Crash and Bash. I run this over Syncs. If you have the choice between Crash and Bash and Sync, I run Crash and Bash because there's a lot of times where you get up to 2 Seismic Surge. You draw your Crush card and you're like, oh man, I can't gain Dominate. But then Crash and Bash, revealing a Crush card, gaining that 3rd Seismic Surge, blocking 4, and then allowing you to throw that Disruption next turn. Maybe it's that Spinal Crush that you've been waiting in Arsenal for, and you drew blue Crush card. You reveal the blue Crush card, you block 4, and then you can throw that Spinal by creating another Seismic Surge and then paying 2 towards it. A 2-card 9 is pretty insane because Crash and Bash is in your hand. A 2-card 9 and you blocked 4, that's not even including the 3rd card that's in your hand that maybe you want, or 3rd and 4th card in your hand. Maybe it's a Pummel, maybe it's 2 other blues. It gives you insane value. It is crazy how good this card is, and you won't really notice it. There's a lot of times where I play this, I go through the entire match, and not a thought in my head was about how good Crash and Bash is. But whenever I try and really justify how good is this card, and I see how I play it, and see when it gives you that Seismic Surge, it's crazy. It's good. Again, I run it over Sync 99% of the time. It's only when it's against other, or against reaction decks that maybe I think a little differently, but even then, I think into most of the Assassins I run Crash and Bash and Sync Below. But I usually choose this over Sync Below. Next are Sigil Solace. This is where when you want to fatigue, Verdance, you want to run this into. There's not actually a lot of decks that it really wants into, and it is mainly a Verdance deck, and that's why I kind of want to cut the Sigil Solace to put in more Arcane Barrier, because I think that the deck would be a better fatigue deck, especially if you're trying to fatigue Arcane, if you took that out. So, that's where I'm it is again just for fatigue options, but it is Sigil Solace. Everyone knows that card. Sync Below, again, another card that everyone knows. It's good for if you need extra reactions, but generically, I think, oddly enough, it's one of the cards that you might be happy to cut if you wanted to put in some tech for your own. Same with Sigil Solace. But one thing I do want to mention with Sync Below is watch when your opponents play it. Opponents will play Sync Below into you. Opponents will activate the ability. You create a Seismic Surge off of that. I've had it so many times with the opponents sink below, I sink a card, I draw a card, and I go, okay, create a Seismic Surge. I'm up to 3 Seismic Surge. And then you see their face kind of grimace a little bit because they just put you up to the dominate range, and that allows you to do your crazy plays. So, that is, again, it is something you want to watch out for. There's a lot of stuff about drawing that normally players don't think twice about. But anyways, this is a lot of the Valda list. I'm really happy with how it performed over the weekend, and I am really happy with this list. I go to armories. I think, again, the only thing that I'm a little contentious about is maybe the Verdance matchup. So I want to say I'm a little, she just has so many plans that's so hard to counter, and she just has damage you cannot evade. I've definitely beat Verdance a couple times, but it is very, very tough. I want to say this deck, even if you just bring it to your armories, again, this deck, if I'll show you the results real quick, I've been really happy. I mean, it's online, but I have a pretty good win rate on it. Pretty good matchup into a lot of different heroes. Like, my losses were to KO and Verdance. Out of all these, I have a 100% win rate into Syndra. And the other thing that I haven't seen a lot of people talking about is I've seen a really bad win rate for Valda into Florian. This deck, at least the one I've built, feels insanely good in the Florian because you have just so much evasive damage and they only have so much defense reactions. You have so many ways to just generate the aggressive attacks. I've beaten Florians and I've forgotten my Arcane Barrier. You just go so aggressive that they don't go online fast enough to really gain the value of what Florian does. But this deck, I'm, again, very proud of. There's a couple changes that I think I might make, but I think this is something that you could easily take to your armory and 3-0 it, 4-0 it, however big your armory is. Some of the easiest replacements are going to be probably the equipment that are generic, are really easy to replace. Even if you don't have a Crown of Providence, you could go Civics Peak. I used that for a little bit when I was debating if I wanted Crown or Civics. And I ended up on Crown because of the consistency piece. But it was really cool when the opponent would have a card in hand looking to arsenal it, and then you could just give them an extra card. And you get the value of getting a Seismic Surge because you made them draw. And it has temper too, so you block more. So, easy replacement. Crater Fist, easy replacement for Iron Fist Revelation. Quick Dodge Flexors. I'm not a fan of Civic Steps, but it is an easy replacement. And you could go with Crater Hooves. You have turns where you don't have Dominate. But if you don't want the downside of Crater Fist, Crater Hooves is an easy replacement. Boom, the most expensive part of the deck is gone, the generic equipment. Authority of Toya, again, I don't actually know if it's good. I think it gives you maybe 1% overall, and that's why I have it on my list. But Aftershock, easy replacement. I think the two cards that are probably going to be the hardest to replace is going to be Leyline and Grandeur of the Holly. But again, Grandeur could be replaced with any blue, like Heave 2 or even Heave 3 card, like Thunderquake. And I think Leyline is necessary for this list. It's the only card I'm going to say you have to sit down and invest if you want to play my list, the one that I feel so confident on. But the rest, I think you have an easy replacement with all those. And if you replace all those with the more common rarities, and you replace them all with what is a perhaps cheaper deck, I think you still got 90% of the deck. If you replace all the generic equipment, even if you replace the shield, you replace the authority, and maybe even a bit of the sideboard, again, I think you have 90% of this deck. This deck is meant to just feed on itself, and it doesn't require a lot of input from your opponent to keep yourself going, which is what's so strong about it and why I feel so confident in it. But overall, I just wanted to share this. There's not a lot of Valda deck decks out there. There's not a lot of people talking about Valda, and I have absolutely fallen in love with Valda. I've been blinging out the deck a lot, and she's going to be my deck for a long time. I just wanted to share this. So, thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Leave comments, leave likes, whatever it is. If you just feel free to reach out however you need to. I am always happy to talk Valda. I'm so happy and so excited. And I don't really keep secrets very well, so if you come in excited enough to talk to me, if I have some weird Valda deck secret, I'll spill it. Oh man, tectonic instability, I'm starting to cut it or whatever. I'll just feel free to reach out. I'm really excited to be able to spread more Valda because I think she's way better than she's being represented. But thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.